Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. Welcome aboard the show, Romaine Wright.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Nice to have you. And Romaine, you're all the way from Philadelphia, which I think you just mentioned at 6 p.m. or 6 around 6:07 on Monday, and it's Tuesday morning here. We've got a fair bit to unpack today, Romaine. I'm pretty excited to chat to you. You're a team alignment strategist and founder of JW Consulting LLC, where you help organizations redesign culture, communication, and leadership by realigning teams from the inside out, which I absolutely love, especially from all my experience, working with teams in my old world and now in my new world. And you've got a background in psychology and years of hands-on experience supporting high growth businesses and leaders. But you bring what I love, you bring this grounded, human first approach to transformation.
You've done a great job of summarizing my work for sure. The one thing that was missing is just I primarily work with founders and early leaders and early teams because I find that this type of work is something that they often don't think about
No.
until they're focused on the product or the service, and then when they start to hire and want to scale, they're looking around like, oh, what what do we tell these new people when we bring them on, and how do we teach them, how do we replicate what we've been doing in our success, and they don't have any systems or structure around it.
So how did you get focused on that? How did you decide that that's where the point you wanted to start at? Like, have you always been in this space and place? Like, have you worked in corporate world previously to starting your own company or yeah.
Yeah, so such a journey, for sure. I will say for this particular space that I'm in, it's relatively new for me, this particular niche. I just celebrated 2 years of being a full-time entrepreneur and leaving my corporate job, where my career has always focused around bringing the best out of people, from starting in more clinical social work, mental health areas, and then my career evolving into talent development, um, and now focusing on developing leaders and specifically founders. But just over the last few months, I've kind of buckled down and said, this is the group I want to dedicate my time and devote my effort to, because I saw the gap in the industry and realized that startups are themselves an industry because the way that they navigate and the way that they build is unique, and kind of messy. But again, some of the things that or most of what I teach and help them with are things that they don't think about until they're further along. But when it comes to, funding and backing, venture capitalists and private equity and angel investors are super excited to see companies that have that structure and
Mm.
focus in place, and more likely to invest in those types of organizations than those that are still figuring it out.
Yeah, and I love that. And I don't know about you. Like, I mean, I've been in startup to scale up myself, and I think you can't have a system without a culture, and you can't have a culture without a system.
Mhm.
And from the minute of a startup, obviously you want to grow the business, you want to grow the company. And as you grow, the team grows or you bring on more people. So you might start with one or two of you, which is where what happened with me. And then you kind of next thing you've got five people and then you've got 10 people. And so as things grow, it's like, well, what are we holding ourselves out, like what's our values, what's our vision, what's our strategy? And a team needs to be able to rally around something that is like the North Star, if you like, or what I like to call the heartbeat or the soul of the business. Is that something that you work with them on in terms of you've got this signature program, which is Thrive or Derive? And I'm keen to
Mhm.
unpack a bit about that. But yeah, given you're in startup world, and like what are your first initial things that you look at or work with the founders on? Is it getting them ready to set up the company so that they as they're building a team, or is it part of there's a team already in place?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and you've done a great job of talking about the heart of what I do, where, yes, you start off with one, maybe two or three people, and then you've got five people and then 10 people, and the question is, okay, who are we now? Right? And my goal working with companies is to help them put those things in writing before they get to the 10 people, before they have the big boom of having to hire a bunch of people so that they can scale. And then they're looking around and saying, again, how do we replicate what we've already done? What's our superpower? What's our secret sauce? Because they're kind of on autopilot early on and they don't think about how they're working, right? The what is always in place, but the how is rarely in place. And that's what I help them to do. How do you work? What is the culture of this organization? And you mentioned Thrive or Derive. And the heart behind that name is culture is always developing. Either you're going to do it intentionally and so that your company can thrive, or you'll let it derive on its own and then have to go back and kind of play damage control to get it to be what you want. It's so much harder to do it later. And so, again, I landed on this being my target audience because I've talked to so many different people. I meet so many brand new entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, and folks that are, within the first 5 years of their businesses, and they get to a stage where it's like, why does it feel so much harder? It shouldn't be this hard. And then I asked a few questions and realized you don't even know what you would teach new people if you brought them aboard. And so I really do help companies to get that clarity. We kind of start in the program with getting that clarity. I have 3 steps. So it's clarify, align, and then perform. So it starts with all of those key people coming together, getting some clarity. Like you said, what are our values? What are our immutable laws? How do we work? And what does our culture look like as we grow? Then they align and get all on the same page about it. That's rooted in the 5 behaviors, which is a
And
behavioral
can we
based.
just pause there for a minute? You just mentioned immutable laws. Can you talk to me a little bit about these
Oh yeah.
immutable
So
laws?
so immutable laws is an idea. I actually read there's a book called The Pumpkin Plan, and it's about um learning how to niche down your business. And in it, it challenges you to identify the immutable laws of your business. And so I kind of borrowed from that. Essentially, immutable laws are what are the guardrails that govern the way that you make decisions about how you work. Like one of mine is that I'm the master of my calendar. And so if I'm the master of my calendar and I have a client that wants to dominate all of my time, I know that that's not a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And it makes the decision to work with them or not a lot easier.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just writing that down, immutable laws. I hadn't heard that language before. And sorry, so then you said there was then the 5 behaviors, I think you mentioned after
So we've got the clarify stage, then the align stage, the 5 behaviors. So have you heard of the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a
yeah,
Team before?
I've read it.
Okay. All right, great. So Patrick Lencioni, the author of that book, partnered with a company to design the 5 Behaviors program, which is a way to address those dysfunctions. And as a practitioner of that particular program, I've built it in and integrated it into my signature program to bring teams in alignment during that alignment stage. So help them build trust, how to have productive conflict, how to build commitment into their work, teach them how to hold each other accountable effectively, and then help them maximize their results as a collective team instead of focusing on their individual results.
What
And then go ahead.
No, and what about like for me, there's almost, I think about behaviors like, there's like team flow triggers in terms of like, so there's shared risk, it's, it's communication, it's actively listening, it's everything you're talking about. But I also think there's this huge part of it that is just like this familiarity and this personality piece that I've been working with leaders and teams that I'm working with where I'm, asking them to like do their personality tests, and then how do the personality types all sync and perform together? Because I think when you
Mhm.
look at the personality types, the 16, well, I play with the 16 personality types and the VIA strengths test. It's really interesting
Mhm.
in terms of looking at then, okay, well, then how does this all play out? So this person's like an introvert or an ENJF or whatever. And so there's extrovert, introvert, and it's like, how does that dynamic play? Do you look at that as well when it comes to behaviors? Is that one of your next steps or?
Yeah, you're on it. It's actually part of the clarify stage that I work with companies. I'm actually a practitioner of everything DISC as well. So if you've heard
Okay.
of the
Yep.
DISC personality styles, so they do, we do a DISC workshop as well where they learn about their styles, learn about each other's styles, and learn how to communicate and manage conflict more effectively based on those styles. So that's all part of clarifying, right? Getting a clear picture of
Yeah,
who you
cool.
are as an organization, who you are as individuals, and how you can work better together. It's also included in the five behaviors as well, because it's an assessment tool as well,
Yeah.
but it's partnered with DISC. So when they get a report to say this is where your team kind of ranks regarding these behaviors, it also provides information on how their style fits into that. So it's all works together because you can't have those things separately. So again, you're absolutely right on it.
Yeah, cool. And so then what happens? So like, do you ever go into businesses when you've got this program, which is Thrive or Derive? Do
Mhm.
you ever go into businesses like a startup where they're deriving and they haven't even started thriving yet? Like, do you do the opposite end of the scale?
Oh, well, they almost are always deriving from. So that's generally where they're starting. And the beginning is just helping them realize that in order for them to thrive, they've got to get aligned.
Mm, mm,
And so yeah, again, culture is always, evolving. It's always developing, whether it's intentional or not. And
mm.
so the idea is for founders to early on realize that it will happen anyway. If they do it on purpose and intentionally, they can use that as a strategic advantage for their company versus something that they have to tackle and struggle through later on.
Yeah. And what about performance, Romaine? Like in terms of like we're in this fast-paced world, right? Everything is like go, 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 go. Founders generally are notorious for working lots of hours. They've got to, they want to build their business, grow their business. You talked about your immutable laws in protecting your schedule and things like that. As part of performance, because I think you mentioned that as one of your steps as well, it's clarity behaviors, and then I think you said performance, I'm pretty sure. Are you focused on looking at that whole being or that whole team being, if you like, in terms of ensuring that they're not, burning out, they're working like sustained hours, being able to, what I like to say, shine their brightest by feeling and performing at their best, which is, being able to access this flow state, where things are more effortless. How do you work with startups and in particular founders to
Mhm.
ensure that that is established as a foundation versus a just hustle, 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 whatever it takes mentality, where we know that that leads into just exhaustion, dysfunction of teams deriving, etc., etc.
Yeah, you're all in my 30-second elevator pitch, right? Because what I say is that I help founders and early leaders bring their teams in alignment so that they can scale without burnout and breakdowns. So
I like
you're
that.
absolutely right. And that performance stage is all about how do you now make this your own? How do you continue forward with what we've built in the first two steps? It includes some one-on-one coaching, some group coaching as well, to really help them navigate true behavioral change, because that I think is the difference between my program and others who do similar work. Because my background is in psychology, it's really all about behavior and not theory for me. So it's, well, how do we make real change so that it's sustainable and that it can be replicated as you grow and scale your business.
And you talk about that change from the inside out, right? It all starts within. Like it's, I feel it, as part of a team, everyone needs to bring themselves to the team, excuse me. They've got this, unique personality, if you like, this unique skills about them. But then how do you
Mhm.
harness it as a collective? Is that kind of what you focus on as well? Like, so that it's not just about the individual, it's about the team, but what the individual is contributing to the team.
That's a big part of the alignment stage in those five behaviors. In fact, that's why the model starts with trust at the bottom, and not just trust in the general term, but vulnerability based trust, right? So, how do we as a team get to a place where we're all comfortable raising our hand and saying, I made a mistake, I need help? And feeling like they can do that without being judged, without someone thinking that they don't have the qualifications that they need or discrediting them, but really building that vulnerability based trust first before you start to elevate to the next levels. And it's almost you can spot when trust is lacking in an organization very quickly, just listening to what they're saying and how they talk about their work. And so that again, that align stage starts right there first, because you can't build on top of anything
No, you can't.
unless you've got that trust.
Yeah. What do you see as the biggest challenges for startups at today in the world we're living in now?
Yeah, so I typically condense the challenges that startups face with saying that their top resources are trust, time, and talent, right? So trust, as I just talked about, time being an essential commodity, especially for a startup, because people are wearing multiple hats.
Yeah.
And for founders who aren't familiar with the balance that it takes to just be a high performer, they run into the risk of just burning out very quickly. And then talent, of course, being their people and themselves. And so I think that those challenge, any kind of specific challenge a company is having or startup is having, can kind of be um, condensed down to one of those three things: trust, time, or talent.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. Time in particular, like, I mean, all of them, to be honest, like that trusting of your team, of the ability as a founder to, enable your team to like delegate, like, like delegate to your team because, as a founder, you might start as a one person band and you're juggling so many different, you're wearing so many different hats, you're doing everything. It's your baby, right? But then you almost, yeah, you're then having to give your baby to someone to look after, if you like, or babysit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that ability to delegate, to hand it over and trust. And then obviously the trust comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
But that
Yeah,
allows you then to have more time, right?
absolutely. And also, that's a huge one for founders, because that particular facet of trust, delegating tasks, because often when people delegate or leaders delegate, they only delegate pieces of it, right? You send the email, but I'm going to read it 5 times and edit it to the point where I should have written it myself, but you're the one that actually sends it. So really helping leaders to understand that delegation of tasks to allow them freedom to do other things means fully allowing the person to own that task, right? And really stepping back and being more of a coach versus the architect of how to do it. You know,
Yeah.
that person may not do it the way that you would do it, but if they got it done and it's effective and got the results, that's what's important.
Yeah. Do you come up against much resistance to this? Like in terms of like you go in, you see this derived business where you're like, or I call it survival mode. They're operating in survival mode. They're stuck. They're everything. Sometimes you have to have those hard conversations and go, this is how I see your business. This is how I see you as a leader. And nothing's personal, right? Like this is just calling it out because you can see the fundamental need and opportunity for transformation.
Hmm.
They've come to you for a reason.
Hmm.
What do you do when you get that sort of resistance, or what do you do when you get, people or businesses coming to you, but they only want a surface transactional response? How do you navigate those situations?
Yeah, I'll share a specific example because it's a great question. So there's one organization I was working with. They hired me to come in and do a culture building workshop with them. So kind of the very early stage of my program, but not everything, right? We just want to focus on our culture and understand our values better. And it was a significant project or program for them, I should say, an event for them because they had about 30 employees and they required that everyone came. So everyone from the CEO all the way down, they kind of shut down that day to come to this workshop and it was a half day. So it was significant for them. And the first half of our session, the first couple of hours, um, they were engaged and they were sharing, about things, but it was very, oh, we love working here. Everything's great. There's no problems, da da. And then we had a lunch break and the CEO came to me and said, hey, I really feel like they are not being, transparent because I'm in the room. What can we do about that? Because we brought you here for a reason. I want us to get the full benefit of this time we have with you. How can we make them, how can they be more comfortable with being honest? Because I want us to be the best we can be. And we can't be if they don't tell me what's going on. And so I said, I love that you brought that to my attention, that you're sharing that, and that you're even here, because the fact that you're here says a lot. So we started the second half with him actually getting up and saying, hey, listen, like giving them permission
To
to
talk.
be honest and transparent. And that second half, boy, they took the gloves off. They took the gloves off, and we ended the session with them collectively committing to one initiative that they would implement on their own, um, that would allow them to get to the next step, right? So not the full, destination, but how can they get a little bit better than they are now? And it ended up being a reward system focused on their values because what we discovered was they all had their own interpretation of what the values meant, what it looked like in practice, and they needed to have some clarity around that. So they created a committee that would define, these are some examples of showing this value, that value, that value, that value in these different departments and different roles. And they created a whole model or a whole program, rewards program, that would highlight employees demonstrating those values so that there would be reinforcement throughout the organization of this is what we mean when we say we are transparent. This is what we mean when we
Yeah,
say
cool.
that we are honest, right? Um, and so, they were really excited about doing that, and it ended up being a very successful initiative for them.
Yeah, well done. Well done. When you signed up to the pod, well, when you booked in to do the pod, I asked a question around a unique experience or insight in life, leadership, or business. And you said a major insight for me has been that much of what we've been taught about life and what makes a person successful is actually detrimental to our growth and well-being. Can you share a little bit more about that for me, please?
Yeah, we've already been talking about it a little bit.
I thought
But
we would
I
have,
I
but
have had to unlearn so much.
yeah,
And one of those things that you've already mentioned is that hustle mentality that, you sleep when you're dead, kind of thing. And, I've learned that true high performance means having balance. It means taking breaks, giving yourself permission to be human, being able to maintain the relationships that nurture you. Um, and being able to be authentically yourself. And all of those things are things that we're taught the opposite of, that we have to do the opposite in order to be successful in life. And so I've been unlearning those lessons for the last few years. And I try to build some perspective and insight into that, in particularly in my coaching, because I hear a lot of that from founders, business
Yeah.
leaders, and having to kind of combat those thought patterns and help them understand there's more effective ways to tackle the challenges that they experience.
Well, there is, and I feel like, you've got your methodology and I've got my methodology was actually learn, unlearn, relearn. And the learn for me is that awareness. Why am I hustling? Why am I pushing myself so hard? What am I resisting? What am I fearful of? What do I need to let go of to be able to then go in and go, all right, that's not serving me. If I keep working 100 hours a week or whatever, I am going to collapse. I am going to be exhausted. I'm not going to be my best self. And so the
Mhm.
unlearning is then what do you reimagine or recreate or reshape so that it is more sustainable to perform as that leader, as being
Mhm.
part of that team. And then the relearn is then, how do we ensure that we sustainably continue to, implement these new ways so that we don't keep falling back into our old ways of being? Because we've all, and, with your psychology background, like, work has always been, you work hard, you're paid, you work hard, you have your weekends for rest. It's a very traditional way of thinking about work, and yet the world we're now living in, warrants us this opportunity to go, actually, no, there is a different way to do business, to the way we live, the way we lead, all of that. This is the time now to reshape it. And what you're doing, what I'm doing, from, inside out, the transformation from the inside out starts within here. It starts within here for all of us.
Mhm.
What would be what would be one piece of advice or tip you would give to a founder or a team that is currently stuck or they're in that derive mode?
Mhm. Yeah, funny, I was actually just speaking to a founder maybe a week or two ago, and we were talking about the habits that she's brought over from her corporate career into her business. And the big one that was stressing her the most was having gaps on her calendar, right? If you look at the schedule for the day and it wasn't booked every single minute, and it was causing her stress and anxiety. And so we spoke about what the advice I would offer is really taking the time to define what entrepreneurship looks like for you, and again what you want the culture of your organization to be. And so we talked about that together, where we were kind of tackling what was causing her to feel this anxiety just because she had the white space. And it really came down to, in the corporate environment, that hustle is what gets you promoted. um and those habits is what, is rewarded, and that's not how she wants her organization to run. So we talked about, again, that permission to say, hey, I'm the CEO. So, or I'm the founder, I'm the owner, I'm whatever you choose to label yourself. I'm the one that decides what this looks like, how we operate, and really owning that. And that is not comfortable for everyone. Most of us are used to being told what to do and how to do it. And now we come into an environment where everyone's looking at us and following what we're modeling to determine, okay, this is how I'm supposed to work. And so yeah, that would be my advice is really taking the time to sit down and just think about what do I really want this to look like? Because you have the permission to do that.
Yeah, and anything's possible, don't you think? Like anything's possible, you have the permission to do that. Romaine, I've really enjoyed our chat, I will say today, I won't say this morning because well, for you, you're in the past, I'm in the future. Well, we're having a really great present chat. How do we find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there or even follow me there. I have a page, my business, Just Right Consulting LLC has a page. And that's where I live when it comes to the business and providing insights on what I do.
I love it. Thank you so much, Romaine. You have a wonderful evening and thank you.
You too. Thanks for having me again.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.